HOA tried to evict my grandpa, but the cops they called work for me. The sun dipped low over Maplewood Lane, painting the sky in hues of amber and regret. My grandfather, Henry, stood on the porch of his modest home, his gnarled hands gripping the railing as if it were the last tether to his dignity. At 82, he was a man of quiet strength, his life etched into the lines of his face and the flowers he tended daily in his garden. Those flowers, roses, daisies, and marigolds, were his pride, a living testament to the wife he'd lost a decade ago. But to Karen Whitaker, president of the Maplewood Homeowners Association, they were a violation, a blight, an affront to her perfectly manicured vision of the neighborhood. Karen had moved into Maplewood 2 years ago, her arrival marked by a flurry of complaints and citations. She wielded the HOA rulebook like a scepter, her clipboard a shield against reason. Henry's garden, with its wild, colorful sprawl, was her latest target. Unapproved flora, she'd called it, citing some obscure bylaw about uniform landscaping. She'd sent letters, then fines, and when Henry refused to rip out his flowers, she escalated to eviction threats. Today, she stood on his lawn, flanked by 2 police officers, her smug smile gleaming like polished porcelain. "You've had your chance, Mr. Callahan," Karen said, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "This property is in violation, and the HOA has voted. You're out." Henry's eyes narrowed, but he said nothing. His silence was a storm gathering strength. I stood beside him, my heart pounding, my police badge heavy in my pocket. I was Officer Sarah Callahan, Henry's granddaughter, and I'd driven across town the moment he called me, his voice trembling not with fear but with fury. I knew Karen's power hungry, thriving on control, but she didn't know who she was dealing with. The officers, Tom and Miguel, shifted uncomfortably. They were my colleagues, men I'd worked with for years at the precinct. Karen had called them, expecting them to drag an old man from his home. She hadn't counted on me. "Karen," I said, stepping forward, my voice steady but sharp, "you're out of line. This is my grandfather's home. He's owned it for 50 years. You don't get to bully him out because his flowers don't match your aesthetic." Her smile faltered, but she doubled down. "The rules are clear, officer. This is HOA jurisdiction. Your grandfather signed the covenant. He's in breach." She thrust her clipboard toward the officers. "Do your job." Tom glanced at me, his brow furrowed. "Sarah, what's going on here?" I crossed my arms. "What's going on is an abuse of power. Karen's been harassing my grandfather for months over his garden. She's twisting the rules to force him out. Check the HOA bylaws. Eviction requires a unanimous vote, and I know for a fact Mrs. Delaney didn't agree." Karen's face reddened. "That's irrelevant. The majority ruled." "Actually," a voice piped up, "it's not." Mrs. Delaney, a spry 70-year-old widow from across the street, stepped onto the lawn, her knitting bag slung over her shoulder. She was the twist in this tale, the quiet neighbor who'd been watching Karen's reign of terror with growing unease. "I never voted for eviction," she said, her voice firm. "Karen lied about the vote. She's been forging documents to push her agenda." A murmur rippled through the small crowd of neighbors who'd gathered, drawn by the spectacle. Karen's composure cracked, her clipboard trembling in her hands. "That's slander," she snapped. "You have no proof." Mrs. Delaney reached into her bag and pulled out a crumpled piece of pap-era copy of the HOA meeting minutes, marked with Karen's handwritten alterations. "I kept records," she said, handing the paper to Miguel. "She changed my vote after I left the meeting." Miguel scanned the document, his jaw tightening. "This is serious, Ms. Whitaker. Forgery's a crime." Karen's eyes darted between the officers, her confidence unraveling. "This is absurd. I'm protecting the neighborhood's value. By bullying an old man out of his home?" I shot back. "Those flowers are my grandmother's legacy. They're not going anywhere, and neither is he." Tom stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "Ms. Whitaker, we're not evicting anyone today. We'll need to investigate these allegations. You might want to get a lawyer." Karen's face contorted, a mix of rage and disbelief. She stormed off, muttering threats, but the fight had gone out of her. The neighbors erupted in whispers, some nodding in approval, others shaking their heads at Karen's audacity. Henry turned to me, his eyes soft with gratitude. "You didn't have to do this, Sarah." "Yes, I did," I said, squeezing his hand. "This is your home. No one takes that from you." But the victory was bittersweet. That night, as I helped Henry water his flowers. He told me the truth he'd kept hidden. His heart was failing. The stress of Karen's harassment had worsened his condition, and the doctor had given him months, maybe less. The flowers weren't just a garden, they were his final act of love, a way to keep my grandmother's memory alive until his last breath. I sat on the porch, staring at the marigolds glowing under the moonlight, my chest tight with grief. Karen's cruelty had cost my grandfather precious time, moments he could have spent in peace. The cops she called might have worked for me, but no badge could stop the clock ticking down on Henry's life. The next morning, I found a single marigold placed on my patrol car's windshield, a silent thank you from Mrs. Delaney. It was a reminder that community could still triumph over pettiness, but it couldn't erase the ache in my heart. Henry's fight was won, but his war with time was one we'd all lose. What would you do if someone tried to take your home for something as small as a garden? Share your thoughts on justice, community, and what's worth fighting for.